Numbers do a lot of heavy lifting, especially when we are dealing with listing websites. They help your visitors to quickly gauge their options and to decide where they need to click next. In the previous video, we already showed how we can use the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms in the product listing card to help your users to decide. So in today's video, we're now going a step further to show how we can use the pagination and results count to improve your archive property listing page. So now let's take a look. Here's a quick demo of what we want to accomplish in today's video. So here we see the property archive listing page showing the list of properties. Then we have a number at the top telling us how many that we can see on the current page. So it says showing 1 to 9 of 48 homes. So the visitor already knows how many they are expecting on the current page and that there are more to expect. And if you go down to the bottom, you can get to see the pagination. So the users can quickly skip through to other pages. And finally, at the top of the page, we get a URL query parameter so that the user can always refer back by that URL parameter to the exact page that they need. So all of these makes the listing website a bit better. So now let's see how we can do it in Builderius. I'm currently working on the properties archive template. Within this template, I've created 5 sections. The first section is the header section that contains the property title as well as the results count. But right now it is static data. We'll edit it to make it dynamic. Then the next section is the filter bar. I showed how to do it in the previous video, so you can refer back to that video. Then next we have the results listing, and that is just using a collection element. And we just have the post query that is running on that collection element to return the list of properties. Then if the list of properties returns 0, we want to be able to show a different template, which is a static template. And then finally, we have a section where the pagination will go into. So now let's see how we can wire up the dynamic data and fill everything into the page. So I'll head over to the dynamic data tab, which is at the bottom of the screen. And ideally, you'd create a new variable by clicking on the variable plus icon and give it a name. But we already created a variable in the last video, so I'm just going to continue with that variable. But if you want to create it, it's very simple. You create a new variable with a name, then you run the post query. Ideally, in an archive template, you would want to first enter the archive object. So you type archive in curly brackets, then put in the post query in there. But because I want to add the filtering system, I did a custom post query. So that's why the post query is as an outer element. So within this post query, I just did the arguments, things like the post type, the post per page, and so on. And we returned a list of posts object, which is what was now shown in the results listing. But now we're taking it a step further to add pagination. If you want to add pagination, it's very simple. You can just even look at the docs. And that's all you need to do. You just need to call a new object called pagination. And that's it. That's as simple as it gets. So let's go ahead and see how we can do it. So either before or after these posts, let me say before, you would see a list of items you can add. And what we are focusing on is pagination. The pagination is an object, so we now have to first add what are the inputs to make the pagination better. So the inputs that we will typically use are, first, we can choose the pagination URL parameter name. This is what will show up in the address bar. And we can give it a name like page, or like I used in the example, p_page. Then the next one is what are the labels that will show up as the previous and next button. So I can say previous text should be previous, and the next text should be next. You can see the example. If we go down to the pagination, you see the previous text is called previous, the next text is next, and at the top bar we have p_page equal to the page number. Then the next thing we'll do is we'll also determine the mid size, and I'll say 1. What this mid size simply means is how many page numbers do we want to show before and after our current page. Let's look at the example. Let's go to a page like page 4, and you notice something, that we have one number before, that is number 3, one number after, that's number 5, then we have the first number and the last number, then we have previous and next. So because I set the mid size to be 1, it means that it will only show one number before and after our current active page number. Then it will show the first page and the last page so that the user can always quickly skip to those pages, and then it will show the previous and next button. So that's it. You can increase it or reduce it depending on how many pages you typically have on your archive listing page. Then that's basically it for the inputs. Now, let's go ahead and see what do we want to return from this whole pagination. So I'll go into the curly brackets that shows what is the output. The first and most important thing we need to return is the links. So if I press Ctrl I, you can see all the things we can return. The important one is links. And these links is basically all we need. Other things are just nice additions, but this is the main thing we need. So let me go ahead and do get data. And we can see it returns the entire linking. And I can just go ahead and now use it in my pagination. So within this pagination placeholder that I have created, I can go ahead and replace the static text with my links. So that's the one from the custom data variable that we created. And it's returning, but right now it is returning it as an escaped text for security reasons. If you want it to now be outputted normally, you simply right click and say on escape. And now we get our numbering system working and everything works. The whole numbering system is going to work. So I can go ahead and save and preview on the front end. And we can see if I go to page 2, it will move to the second page and so on. And at the top bar, you get to see the URL query parameter added. Now, let's go ahead and do the next thing, which is improving the results count, because the results count currently is static data. We need it to be dynamic. So the way I want it to be set up is I want it to showing one home if the total results count of my posts is equal to 1. If the query returns a number that is equal to the post per page number, then it should just say showing all X homes. Otherwise, it should say showing the starting number to the ending number of the page, so like 1 to 9 of the total count for the properties. So now let's see how we can set all of this up. First, within our pagination, rather than only getting just the links, I would also want to get what is the current page and what is the posts per page. Let's get data. So the current page is page 1 because we're on the starting page, and we get the post per page is 12. So now how do we get the starting number for each page? If we think about this thing logically using calculations, the first page, because we've set the posts per page to be 12, that means the first page will have from number 1 to number 12. The second page will have from number 13 to number 24, and so on. So the way it is calculated is we will take what is the post per page, then we will take what is the previous page's number. So in this case, let's say the previous page's number is 0. So it will become 12 multiplied by 0 plus 1. And that's why the starting number is 1 for the first page. For the second page, it will be 12 multiplied by 1, which is 12, plus 1, that's 13. The third page will also follow that same pattern. So the way we do it is, we now use what we call an expression result. So I'll come into my output, and I'll say starting underscore number. This is just a variable name. That's why I put the colon. Then I'll do an expression result. And what I want to say is I want to multiply the posts per page. So posts per page, because it's a sibling of what I'm working on. I don't need to put any dots for the parent's name or anything, and I don't need to put it in curly brackets because I'm writing an expression already. So I'm just going to reference the variable name, post per page, without any quotation marks. Then regular arithmetic, I'll say multiplied by the current page. So that's current underscore page minus 1. I'll put that in brackets. Then this total will now add 1 to it. So it's current page minus 1. We'll multiply that by the post per page, and then we add 1. So that is the starting for that section. Let's see if that works. So I'll do get data. And you see 1. So that means I think it's working. We'll test it out on the front end. Then the ending number, ending underscore number, is going to be the current page multiplied by the posts per page. That's very simple. So that'll be expression result again. Current page multiplied by posts per page. Get data. So now it's 12. So it started from number 1, ending at number 12. The next one will start from number 13, end at number 24, and then 25 to 36, and so on. Then finally, all we need to do now is get the total post count. Unfortunately, if we try to get the post count from the current query, there is an output called post count from the current query. But if we do get data for this, it will return 12, although we actually have about 48 homes listed within this website. The reason is that the post count always gets from the current query. That is, it takes into account what you write in the posts per page. What we actually need is something called found posts, but unfortunately, Builderius doesn't have that available in the current version, so we can't actually rely on found posts, because ideally what you would typically do is you go to your posts query, then you'd do no found rows to be false, then you come into the return object and say found underscore posts, and that should return the found post, but Builderius doesn't expose that for now. So what we'll do is we'll now do a technique of running a separate query just to get the post count for the entire query without taking into account the post per page. To do that, I'm just going to copy my post query, just the input of the post query. I don't really need the output. The only output I need is post count. So I'll copy this whole query. Then I'm just going to the top and I'm going to say total underscore query. And I'll paste my post query there and close it. So all I need is the post count, but I'll change the input posts per page to be -1 so I can get all the posts. And now when I do get data, the actual post per page you can see is 48, although the one for the current query is 12. Then finally, I might hide this total query and do an expression so that in case no result is found, it shouldn't just return blank, it should return 0. So I will hide this post query, which is somewhere here where the regular bracket stops, and do at private. Then I'll come underneath and say the actual total now is expression result total underscore query dot the posts underscore count question mark colon 0. So basically what I'm saying is get the post count from the total query and return the output if the output exists, otherwise return 0. So I can now do get data. I can now see the total is now 48. So we've gotten all the numbers we need. We've gotten the number 48, we've gotten the starting number and the ending number, and that's all. So I can now come out of the dynamic data and start referencing all of those numbers in my results count element. So delete that. Then I'll just look for the starting number dash the ending number, and I'll say of the total. Okay. Let me just add the text saying showing. Okay. So now let's see if everything works. So I'll save and preview on the front end. You can see it says showing 1 to 12 of 48 homes. If you count the number that's showing here, there are 12 of them. If I go to page 2, it says showing 13 to 24 of 48 homes. So it's working. Go to the next one. Page 3, showing 25 to 36 of 48 homes. So everything works. So that's the first step. Now we're going to do some conditional logic, which will now display showing one home if the total is equal to 1. If the total is equal to our posts count, then it should say showing 48 homes or showing that number homes. Otherwise, it would say the text that we already set up, which is showing 1 to 9 of 48 homes. Let's see how we can do that. It's simple. We can either do that directly inside of our HTML element, or we do that in the dynamic data. I prefer to do it in the dynamic data so that everything is clean in the output. So I'll go back to my dynamic data, and maybe somewhere at the very bottom, I can now come after all of my query, because it's outside of the query. Right at the very bottom, I can now start and say this is results count output. Then I'll do an expression result. Then if the total is equal to 1, then it should return this string. So because I'm returning a string, I'll put it in single quotes. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. It should return showing one home. Then I'll put colon to say what should happen if it doesn't return one home. Then I'll put that in bracket because I'm going to do some nested conditions. So this time I'll say if the total is equal to our results post count, so that is results dot post underscore count. If they are equal, then it should say showing all X homes. We'll replace that X soon. Then finally, if all of these conditions are not met, then it should say showing X to Y of Z homes. So let's first see if this test works. So I'll go ahead and do get data. Check the bottom. And it says null. And that's because I wrote post count instead of posts count. Let's go ahead and do get data. And now it says showing X to Y of Z homes. Okay. Let's now replace all of these X to Y and X and everything here with the actual data. So what we want to say is for the first one, it should say showing one home, which is correct. For the second one, it should say showing all. The X should be the total number. So I will break it up. So showing all is a string. X should be the actual variable name, and homes should be a string. To now get the X itself, that X is actually the total. And we need to concatenate all of these together because we're joining a string with a variable with another string. So we use the concatenation symbol in between the string and the variable, and the variable and the next string. Then we'll do for the last one as well. It should be showing the x itself is our starting number, which is going to be with the concatenation sign, results dot the pagination dot the starting underscore number. Then we put a concatenation sign. The hyphen is a string, concatenation sign again, and then the y is going to be similar. I'll just copy my variable name and replace it with ending number. Instead of y, it should be the ending number. Then we'll put another concatenation. And off is a string, so put it in quotes. And we need to add spaces in between the quotes. If you don't put the space, everything will now be joined together. Then we put a concatenation sign again between the z and the homes. And then finally, we need to replace the z with our total. So if everything is accurate, it should just work. Let's go ahead and get data. And it now says show it. Okay, I've not replaced it with end. Should be ending number. Get data. So now it says showing 1 to 12 of 48 homes, and we are done. Now I can go back into my results count text, replace that text with our results count output. Gives us the text, and we are finally done with the main part. The last thing we now do is dynamic conditions. So if something doesn't have results, it shouldn't show up. So if this query does not have any results, the results count should hide, the listing should hide, only the empty state should show up. In fact, even the pagination should hide. So for the pagination, we have one conditional logic we can use for pagination that makes everything easy. So if you go into our pagination, into our post query, we have one boolean called has pagination. If I do get data, and you go back to our top, the has pagination will return true if there is pagination. The moment I make the post per page query too large that there is no pagination, so for example, let's say I make it 60 and I do get data, the has pagination will just automatically return false, and that'll be 0. So that's a handy function we can use. Let's return the post per page back to 12 and get data. And we'll now start adding our conditions now. So I'll go into the pagination first, go to the dynamic conditions, which is that upside down looking Y symbol. Add a new condition. It should be a dynamic data. And the dynamic data should be our pagination, the one from our custom query. And all we have to say is if that is true. So it will only show up if has pagination is true. So that one is done. Next is our empty state. So for this empty state, I'll do the conditions again, and it should be dynamic data. And the data is, this time we're checking the total. So if the total is equal to 0, that's the only time it should show up. So that means if the total returns 0, show up, otherwise don't show. We'll go to the results listing, and this will be the opposite of what we did before. So I will do the dynamic data. The total is greater than 0, it should show up, and that works. And then finally, for the results count is the same. Dynamic data, the total should be greater than 0. That's the only time it should show up. And we are done with the bulk of the system. I can go ahead and save, and we can test. So let me refresh. Now we can see the results count. It says showing 25 to 36 or 48 homes. And if we go ahead and check a location like St. Albans, apply, you see that it says showing 3 homes and only 3 properties appear. If I choose something that doesn't exist, like let's just choose some random numbers and it's supposed to return no count, you see that it says no homes match these filters and everything hides. And that's it. That's how everything works. And yeah, that's how easy it is to improve your archive listing with the pagination and results count. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section and I will check it up. And please don't forget to leave a thumbs up so that I know the video helped you out. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.